So our stove is once again reminding us that the next step is ready. And it's not the hops, it's the maltodextrin and the whirlflock tablet. And you can probably see that this is no longer in a powder form. Maltodextrin does not like to go into hot liquids. We find that using just tepid water, I use a whisk, let it sit there. It still gets a little bit clumpy, but after 5 or 10 minutes, it gets really nice and smooth and will dissolve into the wort. If you put the powder maltodextrin in boiling water, you can expect it to clump. Nothing bad will come of that. It's just you're not getting the most out of your maltodextrin. So we've just gone ahead and liquefied that. So we're going to add the whirlflock tablet, and then again using one hand, not ideal, we're going to add the maltodextrin and then stop filming so that we can mix it together and continue the boil. So we have a few minutes left before we add our last hops addition, and then we start cooling down our wort. Sorry about the fan on the last segment. I forgot to turn that off and there might have been some disturbing background noise. While we're waiting, I'm going to pan over to the sink and let's talk about sinks. If you're using a ice bath, which is essentially filling up the sink with icy water to cool down the kettle and the wort inside the kettle, this is a good method that doesn't cost anything other than some water and ice. However, there's some limitations. You definitely want to have a double sink if at all possible, but you get what you get in your home or apartment or condo or whatever. The depth of the sink is also an issue too. Not so much today because we're doing a pretty small batch, but when the water level doesn't even reach all the way up the kettle, it creates the problem that it can't draw the heat out of the kettle, which is what the cold water is doing. It's they're trying to balance each other out. So the water is going to get warmer and the wort is going to get colder, and at some point they're going to be the same temperature, and that takes a long time and a lot of water. I wouldn't recommend using your ice until we get further along, because if you put ice in your ice bath right away, if you have an infinite amount of ice, by all means. But most of us have ice cube trays or ice makers, and my ice maker cannot turn out ice quite that fast to keep up with a very hot kettle. So I'm going to show you a trick here in a minute where we're going to use the sprayer on the kitchen sink. This is not a plug for a ground breaker. This can just happen to be there. But we're going to use the sprayer to reach the part of the kettle that we can't quite get to. And then once we get to the point where the water isn't quite so efficient anymore, the cold water isn't quite cold enough, then we're going to introduce the ice, the little bit of ice that we have, and get down to that temperature where we can pitch the yeast.